All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets in NBA on both PrizePicks and Underdog, also covering a little bit of other sports as well. Let's go in and get into it. So I do just want to start with showing you guys some EV bets that we have. We have a pretty strong one here for college basketball, it seems. You know, a 56% chance for that one to hit. Now, I don't know if this one's going to get bumped or not, but all in all, this is looking like a pretty good prop bet to start the day. You could pair that up with another EV bet that we are getting, which would be Matthew Stafford for over 1.5 passing touchdowns. That's really the best bet that we are getting right now for Thursday Night Football. So I'm perfectly fine pairing those two. For Underdog, we are getting a few more good EV bets. We got top end for over 1 assist, pretty much, to get 1 assist there. That's interesting. De'Aaron Fox for under 4.5 rebounds. DeAndre Hunter over 3s. So we are seemingly getting some pretty good EV bets on Underdog right now as it sits. By all means, let's go and take advantage of that. But I always typically like to start out with the good EV bets. You know, if you guys come in here, you guys use those if they are still available by the time you are watching it. But now let's go ahead and get into the slate breakdown. So let's start out with the first game. We got the Heat versus the Magic. 220 is going to be the over and under. 5-point spread there. Looking at the injury report, we do know that Jimmy Butler and Kevin Love are going to be out, but that is really it. Looking at the Magic, Joe Ingles is out and Markelle Fultz is out. They're actually getting kind of healthy there, the Magic. Now, I do think it's important to note that Bam is back and Tyler Hero is back for the Heat. They had been two players that were out for quite some time. And with that, when we look at the minutes, we see that Tyler Hero played 33. So the first came back only 8 and then literally right back into his typical role. So I think we can expect him to get the normal minutes. Then also looking at Bam here, he also played his normal minutes after, you know, seemingly having his minutes limited in his first game back as well. Or actually, no, that was his first game back, last game. So all in all, we kind of know what to expect from the Heat. Worth noting, however, that Kyle Lowry is going to be back in this game. He sat out the previous game. So definitely some interesting kind of shifts there going on with the Miami lineup. Looking at the players that benefit the most with Jimmy Butler and Kevin Love off the court, it's actually going to be Jaime Jaquez there, guys. He has been someone that has really been a solid player, good find for them. The question is, how much can we trust that? Because some of that sample size was when Caleb Martin was not active. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and put Caleb Martin into the on-the-court projections. And I think that is a big thing, guys, because Caleb Martin, you know, recently has been playing a lot more. Now last game not as much, and maybe there's something there, but all in all, we do still see Jaime Jaquez as the top minute getter. So all in all, I feel like we should be pretty comfortable with him as a play. Looking at the players that benefit the most in terms of a bump in production, Kyle Lowry gets a 5% bump in usage. That's pretty high. Averages about 6.9 fantasy points per 36 more. Interesting, about 6 more field goal attempts as well. So he's just going to get a few more shot attempts up with Jimmy Butler off the court. That makes sense. Bam is a player that also benefits as well. Gets about a 3.5 bump in usage, about 3.9 more fantasy points per 36. Averages about 3 more points, about 1.6 more rebounds. Everything else basically stays the same. But really, we haven't seen this starting unit too much operate together. The projected starting unit operate too much because, you know, whether it's been Bam being out, Hero being out, Caleb Martin being out, Jimmy Butler being out right now, Kyle Lowry, we just haven't seen this unit mixed together too much. My assumption is that it'll be Jaquez, maybe a little bit of bump to Kyle Lowry. Tyler Hero, you would expect to have a good usage rate, but it is a more difficult matchup. Funny, the best bet that we have currently is actually going to be Bam for over 2.5 turnovers, which I do find to be a little bit fascinating. You look at it at his per 36 production, he does actually average 3.2 turnovers per 36 with Butler and Kevin Love off the court, so maybe there's something there. Kyle Lowry over points, I do think I like. His per 36 production with Jimmy Butler and also Kevin Love off the court is about 12.2 points. And again, like maybe he won't get 36 minutes. That is something that, you know, obviously we're going to be concerned about. Played 32 minutes, 39 minutes, 24 minutes. But again, it's tough to really gauge the projected minutes for this one. All in all, I think we can assume he's going to get around 30 minutes or so. If he does that, I do think he has a great chance to get over 8.5 points simply because he gets a few more shot attempts up. From there, I would love to get some Jaime Jaquez props. We're not getting that currently. So let's go ahead and move on to the Magic. Obviously, it's a 10-game slate today, guys. Don't want to touch on any spots too much. Looking at the Magic in this game, this is definitely going to be an interesting spot for the Magic. They got a couple of guards out, but really, I don't see this as a matchup specifically for the Magic with the Heat that I think we need to be going out of our way to target. They have been a little bit more difficult to predict. Maybe with Markelle Fultz and also Joel Ingles off the court, we could see Jalen Suggs get a slight minutes bump, but all in all, it's tough to say if that's going to occur. So let's go ahead and move on to the next game. We got the Timberwolves versus the Sixers. 3.5 point spread. So a game that's projected to stay close. 226 for the over and under. Looking at the injury report, nothing too crazy. I mean, Batum being out, I do think there is some actionable information there. And Robert Covington probably being out as well as Marcus Morris, I do think there is some actionable information to go with that. If all three of them sit, someone like Melton in a close game would probably get the closeout minute. And if you guys have been following along with the Sixers, that has kind of been something with Melton that we haven't really been able to trust lately when everyone is healthy. And so with Batum and, Covington probably sitting tonight, Melton should be able to get closer to 33 minutes rather than the capped at basically 30 minutes that he has been getting, because he should be able to get the final rotation then. So I'm not sure if we're getting any good prop bets for him. It's something obviously we're going to take a peek at right now. But if we are, that's something I'd probably jump on, just having that inherent knowledge there that he should be someone that does benefit. Now, they're not currently giving us Melton props. I do think that that's something that makes sense. Again, he's someone that should get a minutes bump, and maybe he gets closer to his average points. Maybe it's closer to his average assists. Like, I do think there's a bump to be had for him, assuming that Batum, Covington, and then also Morris is off the court. But really, as we can see here, guys, we're not getting that many good prop bets for Philly. Everything is pretty much as it should be without us getting those Melton props just yet. So all in all, to me, with the Embiid Maxey props that we were getting, we can just pass up on those. So let's go and take a peek at Minnesota, see if we're getting any props there. Towns for over points and rebounds. All right, interesting there, guys. So the average sportsbook line is favoring the over of 29.3. So basically what that's telling me is that one of the several sports books that we have pulling in data, one of them probably has the line set at 28.5 or 29, and they're probably really heavily favoring the over there. All in all, though, at 29.5, that is a very good bet for us to get over points and rebounds. You look at the last time these two teams met up, 23 points, 11 rebounds, so definitely got the over there. So I do think that that is going to be an encouraging sign for Towns, and for the most part, kind of a consistent fantasy producer. I will say, I do think that there is some correlation here between Towns getting his over and Rudy Gobert knocking his over. I like that. Just, we have seen that typically they don't coexist together pretty much. So I do kind of like that stack, but all in all, Karl-Anthony Towns over 29.5 for points rebounds is a good one. So let's go ahead and move on into the next game. Probably one of the most interesting games on the slate. We got the Pacers versus the Hornets. About a 10-point spread, 9.5-point spread or so, depending on which site you're looking at. 248.4 for the over and under. So definitely a good game. And speaking of good games, guys, did anyone jump on the Zach Collins fantasy score prop yesterday? Because it was set at 27, and I was really shocked at that. I know someone commented about his assist. I'm like, yeah, well, with his fantasy score line that we are getting right now, that's the easy bet there. He crushed. I was really shocked at that line. Anyways, looking at this game, this is a high scoring game as well. All in all, we probably have some stacking opportunities here. Looking at the Hornets, though, we got to figure out, is Mark Williams going to play? I don't think he is. Gordon Hayward more expected to play, but if he sits, that'll be interesting. But all in all, PJ Washington is probably someone we're going to be looking at simply because Mark Williams is out. And also if Gordon Hayward's out, PJ Washington should be able to crush. Looking at this, we need to get news on Jalen Smith. If he is out and Miles Turner's out, that's going to help us be able to potentially stack this game. So let's go ahead and take a peek at the projected starting lineup. Gordon Hayward, he's expected to play. Looking at right now, they have Miles Turner in there, but truly a game time decision. And guys, right now, some of the best prop bets that we are currently getting are in this game. And so we got Miles Bridges for over fantasy score. We can see the average sportsbook line would have this at about 38, and they'd be still favoring the over there. The projection data doesn't like it as much, but still about 36.5 for the fantasy score, or 36.2 for the projection, and then the PrizePicks line at 36.5. You can see why there's a slight edge there. And so looking at, guys, he has been a little bit, I guess, inconsistent lately. Miles Bridges there. He was someone that really hit the ground running in his first few games back. Lately been a little bit more hit or miss, I will say, but the shot attempts are there. That's what we love. And so in this game where, there's going to be more easy buckets going against the Pacers, I do expect him to have a good game. I do expect him to get his overs. I mean, look at the matchups that he's had. Philly, that's a difficult matchup. They did get blown out in that game. Again, this is a 10-point spread, but all in all, I think the blowout potential is going to be later on. So I like that. He should be someone that does give us like 36 minutes in this game. Again, he's going to give us a lot of shot attempts, going to give us some rebounds. And so all in all, as long as he doesn't have too many turnovers, I think we're okay with that. Much easier matchup. So I can agree with that one. We also have Gordon Hayward for over assist at 4.5. Again, this is if he is active. But Gordon Hayward, again, in a game that's going to be higher scoring, he's someone that typically averages 4.7. You give him one more in a game that's higher scoring. Yeah, I can get behind that. Okay, you look at the last game against the Pacers, Didn't happen. Okay, but he had a great night shooting the basket. Okay, and guys, just going back to Miles Bridges real quick, I don't think that this should be something you're focusing on too much, but his price on DraftKings, and for people that aren't familiar with like DFS, this is a very high price. Okay, so like you could sort by position, and we can see Miles Bridges is one of the highest priced player. This is basically DraftKings' way of saying that they think he's going to have a good game in this game against the Pacers. So for us to be getting such a low fantasy score line for him, like that salary that they haven't listed at is essentially saying that he should get 40 fantasy points tonight. So I do think that's interesting. Obviously, Miles Bridges for over 6.5 rebounds. Gordon Hayward fantasy score. Yeah, that's something I think I'd rather do than the assists. Really, if he is getting 5 assists in this game, guys, he's probably will get over his fantasy score as well. That's another assist there. Assists are 1.5 points. That is something that I do like. And for what it's worth, I do find it interesting that we're not getting any Terry Rozier props. He is someone that I do expect to feast in this game. And what I mean by that is good prop. Like for Terry Rozier, and I'll just sort by him. Like we're not getting any good props. I don't mind the fantasy score prop line there, not the best like expected hit rate there at only 51.5, but all in all, given this matchup, I do think we kind of maybe want to round some game stacks, and we can see he's been highly consistent. One bad game against Philly, game was a blowout. We're not too worried about that. I think this game has a great chance to be close. I think he has a great chance to continue to play well like he had. And you look at that game against Toronto, only 32 minutes. That game was also a blowout. And so just given the matchup with the Pacers, I do expect it to stay close enough for long enough, like it did in the last game where these two teams met. Now, I think LaMelo Ball was active in that game. So all in all, Terry Rozier having 37.5 fantasy points in that game is encouraging to me. So yeah, I do think honestly, Rozier, Hayward, and also Miles Bridges over fantasy score, I'm okay with doing that. Also, PJ Washington is someone I do think is going to have a good game. I do want to mention him because again, like I don't know when or if we're going to get this prop, but he is someone that with Mark Williams out last game, he played a ton of minutes, 39 minutes in that game, really crushed. That game was a blowout, and I do think he got some partial blowout run, but all in all, they probably need him to get minutes, especially if someone like Nick Richards gets into foul trouble. We can expect him to get 30 minutes in this game. And really, I do like him better when he is coming in off of the second unit. He had himself a pretty good game against the Pacers as well. Honestly, I kind of expect this same sort of production out of him tonight. So now let's go ahead into the Pacers, guys. Again, this is a game that I'm spending a little bit more time on because I do think that it's going to be an appealing game to really target. So looking at the Pacers, I do think that these first 3 that we are getting are fascinating. So Buddy Hield for under fantasy score. He is someone that has definitely been inconsistent. And so with the data telling us that he's also going to probably not have a good game tonight, I'm pretty encouraged by that, guys. To me, I'm perfectly fine betting the under there. And then looking at the next one that we have for the under was Bruce Brown, which Bruce Brown maybe a little bit more hit or miss. Obviously, Buddy Hield is really dependent on his shot dropping. Bruce Brown, not exactly that, but it is kind of fascinating that in a high scoring game, now granted, every Pacers game is going to be high scoring, like all these have been. It's kind of fascinating, though, that they are kind of expecting the under against Charlotte, who I don't see as the best defensive team. So definitely interesting there. I will say if Miles Turner is active like they're expecting him to play, this line that we are getting on him for fantasy score seems way too low going against Charlotte, which is weird to say because look at these last few games. Minnesota, 20 fantasy points, difficult matchup, don't get me wrong. Washington, 20.3. Milwaukee, difficult matchup. And so it is kind of fascinating. But again, very good matchup. If Jalen Smith is out, he's probably going to be forced into more minutes. He is someone that I expect in a close game to get at least 33 minutes. Now, he's not going to get the heavy-ish run that he was getting in the in-season tournament. But all in all, this matchup with Charlotte should be one that he feasts. And I'm actually curious, he did not really feast in this matchup the first time out. Only 27 minutes in that game. So kind of interesting there. But all in all, we can see right there, 4 turnovers, though. Cannot be having 4 turnovers tonight. If he does that, he's not going to get the over fans. Mark Williams was active in that game, though. Nick Richard, we're not as worried about, just as an FY. All right, moving into the Jazz versus the Cavs. 5-point spread here. 227 is going to be the over and under. We do need to get some news here, okay? So it's going to be very difficult, and I don't think we're going to get any props just yet. Donovan Mitchell, currently a game-time decision. Evan Mobley out. Garland out. Ricky Rubio out. So let's take a peek at the injury report. He is truly a game-time decision. We'll go through the process of figuring out who to be on if he's out. We see the starting lineup for Utah. Guys, crazy. Okay, Keontae George out. Jordan Clarkson out. Horton Tucker could start at point guard. And if he does, that's going to be intriguing. But I do think we're going to expect Colin Sexton to continue to play well. So I'm fascinated to see which prop lines we're getting for this game, or if we are getting any prop lines for this game just yet. So for Cleveland, we are probably just Jared Allen. No. Okay, so they are expecting Donovan Mitchell to play. Interesting. And we're not getting Jared Allen. That's also fascinating. And just for what it's worth, guys, the reason why they are giving us the lines for for Mitchell is because if he's active, these are going to be his lines. If he's out, then the other players' prop lines that we are getting would massively go up. So he's like a big mover in terms of production for other people. So with Mitchell in, let's just go through kind of the production, who's expected to play well. And honestly, it's difficult to say. I would say, like, I don't mind Jared Allen against Utah. He is someone that has been playing well. That game against Houston, 5 fouls, don't love that. He got in a foul trouble, but all in all, he's someone that I would expect to probably get 10 rebounds, where, you know, obviously we give him 6 more minutes there. He probably gets close to that, but also some more points. You know, in this matchup with Utah, with them kind of being banged up the way they are, I would kind of expect that. And his per 36 production, for what it's worth, is 15.3 points, so about 2 more points there or so, 2.5 more points. His rebounds per 36, 12.2, with Mobley and Darius Garland off the court. So he would be the player that I think we'd want to be looking at. And I'm actually curious. I'm just want to pull up Underdog to see if we're getting any prop bets there. Typically, they're a little bit faster. No, we're not. Okay, unfortunate there. That's annoying for Jared Allen. But yeah, we'll get into Donovan Mitchell then. So Donovan Mitchell per 36 production with just Garland and Mobley out the court, 26.7 points, 5.9 rebounds, 6.1 assists. So this line that we're getting on him is, to me, seems way too high. And we saw that happen last game against Houston, where very similar situation. He didn't get his over for points, rebounds, and assists. Now, he did have a good day shooting the basketball, 37 points there, but the rest of his game was not there. And so, all in all, I guess I would be fine betting the under points, rebounds, and assists for Donovan Mitchell. But all in all, I don't think we need to do that as well. So interesting there. And then let's just talk about if he sits, what do we do? It's going to be difficult to figure out, honestly. Craig Porter would be the one that benefits the most. We have seen this a few times where, you know, some of these players have been out and he does get minutes. Probably expect him to get right around 30 minutes. We see the sample in there right here where he did get, you know, a decent amount of run. His per 36 production is 22 points, 5 rebounds, 8.2 assists. And I just bring that up, and 3 steals for what it's worth. 16 field goal attempts, which is crazy. Has a 27% usage rate. So I'm bringing that all up, guys, because if we get that news, I doubt the data, if we get some props on him, I doubt the data would be properly valuing him for that, because it's a tough data set to come across. And so all in all, I think he'd be a player that we would really want to go in on. But that's probably it. Let's go and take a peek at Utah. So Utah here, guys. Again, the projected starting lineup, we don't know for sure. Colin Sexton is a player that I do want to be going in on. I'm actually very curious as to where Colin Sexton's fantasy score prop is going to be. We can see based off of his points, rebounds, and assists that it'll probably be around 35 or so. And I bring that up because he has been someone that I typically will just kind of ride the hot hand with players. So like Kobe White, I've been banking on a lot recently. That's been working out. Colin Sexton has been a player I've been banking on a lot recently as well. And he is someone that I expect to continue to have a good game. With how banged up Utah is, especially at the point guard spot, they need him to get the run. Like, they don't want to give Chris Dunn that many minutes. That's pretty apparent. So Colin Sexton is the one player that we can bank on getting a ton of minutes. Like, they blew out Brooklyn in the last game and they got blown out against the Kings. He still had 35 minutes in that game. Shot the ball 17 and 18 times in those games. Now, I do want to caution the free throws. We cannot bank on that. 13 free throws. That is crazy. Love the free throw percent though. That's great. But he hasn't had like a good or bad game to the point where you're like, oh, here's some regression or here's some progression. Like Curry was a good example of that yesterday. Like Curry yesterday or the previous game had a terrible night shooting. So on, I'm like, yeah, he's going to have a really good night shooting tonight or the next night, because just typical regression progression. We haven't seen that with Colin Sexton. So I think we can kind of just bank on him having a good game. So all in all, like if we get a good fantasy score line on him, again, like 35, I think is what it should be. I'd be fine betting the over there. From there, Lauri Markkanen, he hasn't exactly been getting the minutes that we would want. Now, if this game stays close, I do think he's someone we could potentially be looking at, but it's really with John Collins there. He has taken away from Lauri Markkanen a little bit. So really the only player that I really want to go on is going to be Colin Sexton, but also a little bit of revenge game narrative if you guys buy into that at all, going against his former team in Cleveland as well. Horton Tucker, though, if he's going to be operating out the point, guys, I am intrigued in him tonight. And I think because of that, we're not getting any fantasy score lines for him because they don't really know how to gauge this. And personally, I'm going to be honest, I don't either. If his prop lines that we are getting are close to his average, like I would smash the over if it's set at 4.5. Rebounds probably don't care for, but points as well. If his points are set at his average tonight, I'd probably want to bet the over. If it's set at 11, I'm betting the over. All right, so now getting to the Nuggets versus the Raptors, 4-point spread. 229 is going to be the over and under. Looking at it, the biggest news is going to be Aaron Gordon. If he is out, really, we're going to see Jamal Murray and probably Michael Porter Jr. step up into a bigger role. That's really it. That's all we'd be looking at. And so I don't think we're going to get that many good prop bets. We'll take a peek though. Yeah, or Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. under fantasy score. Again, I don't know if I exactly want to touch these too much, but with Jamal Murray back, all in all, I could see why the data kind of is saying to bet the under there, especially for Michael Porter Jr., who we can't project the minutes to be there for him. We can't project him to get over 30 minutes. And so to me, this is going to be one of the stronger bets for the under fantasy score. Now, if Aaron Gordon is out, then Michael Porter Jr. definitely has an increased likelihood of giving his over fantasy score. But for now, I'm fine betting the under there. For now, I think that's one of the better bets that we have today. And then from there, I do think it's worth pointing out for Jamal Murray, his points, rebounds, and assists. The average sportsbook line, again, this is probably just one that's causing it to bump up, but it's at 28 points. And so at 28.5, there is a slight edge there. All in all, probably nothing that we need to go crazy with. Let's go into the Raptors. So for Toronto, Dennis Schroeder there, we got at 27 for fantasy score. All in all, I don't think we need to touch that. OG Anunoby, I don't think we need to touch as well. Like all in all, these prop lines that we were getting, I feel like are just correct. I don't see a big edge there. So let's go ahead and move on into the next game here. Looking at the next game, we got the Knicks versus the Nets. Pretty close game, about a 2-point spread. 232 is going to be the over and under. Looking at the injury report here, Mitchell Robinson is out, and also Jericho Sims, game time decision. Now, Sims is someone that does kind of get some run, and so if he's out, Julius Randle is someone that I'm still going to be interested in, even in the matchup against Brooklyn. Noteworthy is Lonnie Walker still being out for Brooklyn, but Brooklyn is kind of an interesting squad because lately Spencer Dinwiddie has been someone that has been getting the minutes and has been going off. Same thing with Cam Thomas. Now Cam Thomas is a little bit more predicated on his shot hitting, and so like if we just sort by fantasy score here, I think that paints a better picture. It's kind of fascinating to me that we get these lines because it does seem to be that it's like 2 out of the 3 are going to have a good game. And like Spencer Dinwiddie lately, 36 minutes, 40 minutes, only 23 in that game against Denver. That was a blowout. He still had a good game. 35 minutes. So like he has been getting the minutes recently. This is the Spencer Dinwiddie that I thought we were going to see at the start of the season. Again, look at his like salary. That is DraftKings' way of saying that they kind of expect him to continue to play well. Now, this is a little bit risky, don't get me wrong, but all in all, I think there's a good chance that he continues to play well. And so I don't mind that over. At the same time, someone like Cam Thomas as well, who has a kind of low fantasy score for the amount of points he can put up, I'm actually interested in that as well. It is difficult, but if you want to blindly like maybe stack this game, knowing that you're probably going to get 2 out of the 3 correct, I'm okay with that. That to me is, I'm saying we don't need to really look at this too much because it is a little bit of a guessing game. Now, don't get me wrong, Dinwiddie and Cam Thomas did take advantage of slightly easier matchups, and tonight's not going to be as easy, but I do find that fascinating. And I do want to pull up Mikal Bridges here as well for his fantasy score. He is someone lately that has been struggling, and I think that we can see that probably does go hand in hand with Dinwiddie having a good game and also with Cam Thomas playing well. And so that could be the approach that I go with. Just ride with the players that have been playing well recently. Cam Thomas, Spencer Dinwiddie over fantasy score, and then Mikal Bridges under fantasy score. Now let's go ahead and get into the New York Knicks. Again, like we're just not getting that many other good props there for Brooklyn. So looking at New York, another kind of interesting that we're going to get is going to be RJ Barrett for under fantasy score. Not the biggest edge there, but he is very much shot dependent, and this is kind of an easy matchup. Now 3 for 10 the last game against the Lakers. Don't love that. And so, yeah, that's where his under fantasy score hits. He's not someone that's going to typically get a lot of blocks and steals. And so, in a way, I think I can get behind this. Now, it is close. And again, very much shot dependent. I don't typically like to target RJ Barrett really at all, unless he is coming in off of a poor night shooting. Let's take a peek at Julius Randle and also Jalen Brunson. Those two just have such a high usage rate. And sure, the matchup for Brunson is not the best. Maybe we don't want to target him. But all in all, he's been playing extremely well lately. And so, I will say this. I'm not going to bet any unders for him. Do we need to go over fantasy score? Probably not, though. Do we need to go over points, rebounds, and assists? Probably not. Now, when we look at Julius Randle, his fantasy score is probably a little bit too low for the amount of minutes that he's probably going to get. But at the same time, we probably would just be fine almost just betting his points, rebounds, and assists because he is someone that gets a ton of turnovers. And so that's why those two lines are pretty close. All right, so jumping on to the next game, we got the Lakers versus the Bulls. So the Zach LaVine game, because I do expect him to get traded to the Lakers. I don't know, I just do, but or end up there at some point in the next couple of years. Anyways, 4-point spread, 225 for the over and under. Looking at the Lakers, yes, they're all game time decisions. I think the biggest thing is that Gabe Vincent is not listed as out. All in all, I think we're expecting LeBron, AD to play as they have been. I do think it's worth pointing out that for the Bulls, they are still going to be without Zach LaVine. Torrey Craig being out, I do think is noteworthy as well. Patrick Williams being a game time decision also. Alex Caruso being a game time decision as well. I want to take a peek at the injury report here. So we can see Caruso expected to play. Patrick Williams actually expected to play. So all in all, kind of their normal starting lineup. My biggest question is, do we continue to go back to Kobe White? And personally, I think that we do. So if you guys have been following the channel, you've been hearing me talk up Kobe White for quite some time, or the past like 2 weeks or so while LaVine has been out, and he has been produced. So this line for 34, for points, rebounds, and assists is honestly too low still. But now it's starting to get to the point where we have to think about it. Like before, it's just like, okay, yeah, let's just continue to roll because we're getting a guy that's playing 40 minutes per night, getting, almost 20 shot attempts up, 15 to 20 shot attempts up. Let's just continue to roll with that over. He's been crushing his assists, been crushing his rebounds. And this is a good example of the data not catching up, guys. And don't get me wrong, like off nights are going to occur, especially with players like this. But when we can take advantage of a player being out where the data hasn't caught up, I like doing that. We saw with Maxey at the start of the season, like they just weren't pricing him correctly with James Harden off the court. That was like a free square for quite some time. That's exactly what it's been like with Kobe White. And so I'm actually very curious where his fantasy score line comes out to be because, again, if he's shooting that much, if he's playing that much, it's tough not to like Kobe White tonight. And so I'll tell you right now, I might not have him on the, bet slip or picks for the day, but I am going to bet on him over because I'm going to continue to ride with that. And to me, the matchup with the Lakers is not something that we're too worried about. From there, we do see DeMar DeRozan, 5.5 assists. That's actually been bumped down on Underdog to 5. I want to take a peek as to why. He has been someone that's also been playing heavy minutes. This game is projected to stay close. I guess just because he's basically been shooting a little bit more. I don't know. That one's interesting. I don't feel the need to go in on that, but we see recently been getting basically 5. Hasn't got the over in quite some time. I would almost argue he's due to get the over there. Vooch at 34.5 for points, rebounds, and assists is somewhat interesting, but all in all, probably don't need to go in on that. Looking at the Lakers, let's see if we're getting props. We're probably getting AD, probably getting LeBron. That's it. And that's what's happening. It's kind of annoying with them. I will say the markets are finally starting to catch up to like LeBron and AD and kind of what's going on. All in all, probably a little bit too thin for those two. So let's go on and move on into the next game. So looking at the next game, we got the Hawks versus the Rockets, and actually kind of a lower scoring game for the Hawks, 234 or so, 3-point spread. Looking at the injury report, Jalen Johnson's still out, and Bogdanovich is really the biggest piece of news. If he's out, maybe honestly, it probably just gives more usage to Murray and to Trae Young if he's out because Bogdanovich has been shooting a lot. So I'm curious. He's more likely to play. So all in all, probably nothing there. And then for Houston, they're pretty much good to go. If Tate is out, I do think Tari Eason going to be someone we can look at for minutes, increase in production. Looking at the props that we are getting, nothing too much just yet. Jalen Green's obviously very much dependent on his points, guys, but I do find this difference to be crazy. They're basically saying he's not going to get a lot of assists or rebounds, which is true. I mean, we come to know that with Jalen Green, but when we look at it, he like averages 1.3 more rebounds, has been having more rebounds recently. So I don't know, I kind of found that to be interesting. Only a 0.5 difference. Maybe there's something there. Now, Alfred Sengun has been someone that hasn't been doing all too well recently, points, rebounds, and assists wise. To me, when we saw that line initially, I was like, whoa, that's way too low. But now looking at it a little bit more, I kind of get it. And also, I will say Jabari Smith lately has not been getting there, and I think that's directly because Easton has been playing better, and he has been getting a lot more minutes. So he's been getting more minutes, and I think that's just into the production for Sengun and also Jabari Smith. So really, I don't know if we have any prop bets here that we can go in on. Maybe Fred VanVleet continuing to play well. I don't think we're all too worried about the matchup too much. As long as he's getting the minutes like he has, those heavy minutes, he can certainly have a good game again. Maybe that'd be the only thing that I would want to look at, but because he's coming in off of good games for Fred VanVleet, we're really not getting any good prop bets. So yeah, it kind of feels like a stay away for Houston. Let's take a peek at Atlanta. So for Atlanta, again, not the best prop bets. Maybe Murray for over turnovers. That's seemingly a good bet. We do see Trae Young for under rebounds and assists. Slightly good EV bet. We can already see Underdog has bumped that down. So a potential there. Like those are not terrible, but all in all, like again, probably a little bit too thin. All right, so 2 more games left here. We got the Clippers versus the Mavericks. A higher scoring game, 237, 3-point spread. It is worth noting Paul George, game time decision. If he sits, obviously we're looking at Kawhi Leonard to have a better game. We're looking at James Harden to have a better game. I do like the matchup against Dallas. Zubac could continue to play well. Looking at the Mavericks, they're going to be without Lively. They're going to be without Josh Green. They're going to be without Kyrie Irving. We have seen that, pretty consistently though, so we should know what to do with that information. Let's take a peek at Dallas. Yeah, so for Dallas, I would have thought we had been getting some good prop bets for Dante Exum. I think this is a better matchup for him going against the Clippers, and it really just depends on whether or not you think they're going to get blown out tonight, because if they're not, Exum is someone that should get right around 30 minutes. Again, the point spread on this game is 3. And so with them having that point spread there, I expect him to have a good game. So I would say this line that we're getting on him is pretty too low for points, rebounds, and assists. Now we can see here, it's basically a 50-50 for him. So maybe a little bit too thin there. Luka over 3.5 threes, 53% chance to hit. If you wanted to bet that one, I guess I'd be fine with it. I wouldn't talk you out of it. Looking at the Clippers, let's take a peek here, and let's actually take a peek at the projected lineup to see if Paul George, he's truly a game time decision. I don't know. I kind of would expect him to play. Again, if he sits, Kawhi Leonard gets a big bump, James Harden gets a big bump. The fact that we are getting props for Kawhi is fascinating. And he has been someone that has been playing well. And maybe they're just kind of like, his role's not going to change if Paul George is off the court. But data wise, it does. Like, he averages 22.5 points per 36, 4.7 rebounds. So already at 30 there, and only 3.6 assists, which I do find fascinating. Now, at the start of the year, they weren't all coexisting together pretty well. And so maybe that's part of it. Good matchup. Well, maybe not the best matchup. Interesting. So yeah, all in all, probably just a little bit too thin, really. Now, he has been getting more minutes recently. It's really tough to say what we do there. James Harden gets the biggest usage bump, gets a bigger bump in points. And so that's probably why Kawhi Leonard's role is not going to change too much if Kawhi sits, whereas James Harden gets a massive bump in his usage to about 26%. And so he'd be the player that would benefit the most. And man, the Clippers have been going off. Again, I don't mind Zubac going in this matchup against Dallas. He has been someone that has been playing extremely well. And so that I kind of expect that to continue. And now let's go on and get into the last game of the slate. So we got Boston versus the Kings, 2.5 point spread, 237 for the over and under. Porzingis was ruled out yesterday on the front end of a back-to-back. I'm expecting him to play because of that. If he sits, Derek White is going to be someone I want to roll with. Derek White ended up being a core play for me DFS wise. And if you guys play like DFS, make sure to be in the Occupy Fantasy live stream. I typically am on there at least 4 times a week, typically. And he was one that was talking up. He had himself a great game. That's not shocking. We just have seen that with Porzingis off the court, that Derek White benefits a ton, and Al Horford as well. Now, we weren't getting any Al Horford props, and again, I expect Porzingis to play tonight, especially because they are coming in off of a overtime game, and it's a back-to-back. Do kind of worry about the minutes for the players. Maybe they get reduced a little bit, but because of that, because of the Porzingis news, it makes sense why we're not getting any props. And then looking at, we got some bonus really for points, rebounds, and assists. That's okay. We can see the rebounds prop at 12.5. Underdog has already bumped that. Surprisingly, Underdog a little bit faster today to bump up their props, but that's at 12.5, seemingly a decent one there. So real quickly, let's go ahead and jump into some college basketball props. So we can see we got some interesting lines here. We got some pretty big edges, more than yesterday too. Let's start here. I find this one interesting. Donovan Dent, the projection data likes him to get 16 points. Again, Underdog has already bumped this. At 14.5 points, that it has about a 54% chance to hit. That's seemingly good EV bets. We got Dennis for under 28.5 fantasy score. Seemingly an okay one. We can see kind of the hit or miss nature that he has had. We have Joel for over his fantasy score at 37.5. The projection data really likes the over there, which to me, that's telling me that they think he's going to get probably a few more blocks or steals than he typically does, and not too many turnovers. The average sportsbook line would have this set at 39.3. And so we look at this, he has been someone that has been a high producer for sure. And in games where he does get the over, he's seemingly crushing it. And so I'm fine betting that over. We got Donovan Kling. I always butcher his name. Donovan there. He's another one where, we're getting a big in this matchup. Probably worried about the minutes a little bit, but all in all, I don't mind that. And we can see the average sportsbook line would have it set at 33.5, and the projection day would have it set at 32.6. And then we got the last one, which is seemingly a really good one for under for Bo, 33.5. Again, a pretty decent line that we're getting. Very, very much hit or miss with him. And I would imagine that it just comes down to a game being a blowout or not. Just pulling up that game real quick. That game is projected to stay close, so interesting there. And then just looking at the best prop bets that we are currently getting right now, just across the board. Bam over turnovers, Matthew Stafford now, college basketball one. Let's take a peek at edge only. This is going to include fantasy score. I just think it's a fun way to look at it, but also it factors in like discrepancies here like this, where the average sportsbook line for Polk receiving yards is at 48.5. Prize picks as set at 58. So just interesting there. Shots on goal here. John Carlson, pretty darn good one. Basically favored as a push at 2.9. So at 2.5, you should be able to get the over there. I like that. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the picks for today. Going to give out some different kind of bet slips for you guys. This is more for example purposes. Like the best bets that we have in this game, like data-wise, Miles turnover, fantasy score. I feel pretty good about Miles Bridges as well. Those are two good ones. This one, I personally like Terry Rozier over fantasy score, but I'm also including that because of the game stack. These were two pretty good data bets as well, where the data was same. Basically, if Miles Turner's going to have a good game, Buddy Hield and Bruce Brown are not going to have a good game. And then Gordon Hayward I like as well for over his fantasy score. This should be a higher scoring game, but it's also going to be a higher scoring game than Charlotte's used to. So all in all, if Vegas is right about this line, then I think, these Charlotte players, we want to be betting the over on. Now, PJ Washington could have a high usage rate, and that would really kill, and he probably will, but that would really kill Hayward, Bridges, and Terry Rozier. That's the difficult part. If I was just to give a 4-slip bet, it would be this one. Take advantage of that really good college basketball prop that we were getting there, EV-wise, and then Miles Bridges again. This one has about a 54% chance for Stafford to get over 1.5 passing touchdowns, and then, I don't love this one the best, but the data does. The data is saying this is the best over fantasy score that we have, and it does make sense going against Charlotte, so all in all, I'll agree with it. And then lastly, I will be just tossing out these ones as well for college basketball, just because I feel like they're good bets. Data likes them, and all in all, with college basketball at least, it does seem to be a situation in which either the data is really right or the data is really wrong. Now, yesterday it was 50-50. Sebastian Mack crushes over points. Tyler Kolek really crushes over fantasy score. Then the other two were kind of close. But that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to give it a like and subscribe. Also hit that notification bell so you're not missing out on any of the great content or great pop ads that pop up throughout the day. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys want access to the 95sports.com PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet, is available for $10 a month. Thanks for watching. As always, let's keep cashing.